The jungle was alive with sound. Birds with strange calls darted between the huge trees, and insects hummed like a constant warning. Jack moved carefully through the thick plants. His boots sank into soft ground that smelled of wet earth. It was hot, and the air was heavy with the scent of flowers he had never seen before. Somewhere above, long vines swayed, even though there was no wind. Jack had been walking for hours, mapping the area for the human outpost, this part of the alien planet was not safe. There were creatures here that no one on Earth had names for. Still, Jack was used to danger. He had worked in wild places before, but something about this jungle felt different. It was as if it was watching him. He stopped to take a sip of water. That was when he heard it, a sound that didn't belong to the jungle. It was faint at first, like a whisper carried by the breeze. But then it came again, sharper, this time a cry. Not the cry of an animal. It was higher, trembling, and full of fear. Jack froze. His training told him to stay still and listen. The sound came from deeper inside the forest, past a wall of dark green vines. He tightened his grip on his machete and began to move toward it. Each step was slow and careful. The ground here was uneven, covered with roots as thick as his arm. The cry came again, this time followed by a short gasp. Whoever it was, they were in trouble. Jack's heart beat faster. He pushed through the last curtain of vines and stepped into a small clearing. That was when he saw her. She was tiny, no taller than his chest. Her skin was a soft, pale blue, glowing faintly in the shadows. Her hair was silver, tangled with leaves and bits of moss. But what caught Jack's attention were the thick black roots coiled tightly around her body. They pulsed like living snakes, their surface glistening with a strange liquid. Her golden eyes met his for a second before she looked away. She was struggling, but each time she moved, the roots squeezed tighter. The liquid dripping from them hissed when it touched the ground, burning tiny holes in the soil. Jack felt his stomach tighten. He had seen dangerous plants before, but nothing like this. "Hold still," he said quietly. He took a step closer. The roots reacted immediately, tightening and pulling her down toward the ground. She let out a small cry of pain. He knelt and examined the plant. The smell from the roots was sharp and bitter. His eyes watered from it. It was some kind of venom. The black liquid was already touching her skin, leaving faint burns. She wouldn't last long. Jack's hand went to the survival knife at his belt. "I'm going to cut you free," he told her. She shook her head weakly. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Don't let it bite." Jack didn't know what she meant until one of the root tips lifted like the head of a snake and darted toward his arm. He pulled back just in time. The tip opened like a flower, revealing thin needle-like spines, dripping with venom. One touch would probably mean hours before death, maybe minutes. There was no time to think. Jack slashed at the nearest root. The blade cut deep, and a thick drop of black venom splashed onto his sleeve. The fabric smoked where it landed. He gritted his teeth and kept cutting. The roots writhed and hissed as if they could feel pain. The girl gasped, her small hands clenching. The venom was spreading faster now. The glow of her skin was fading. Jack worked quickly, cutting one root after another. Every time he freed part of her, the others tightened more. His arm brushed against one of the roots, and pain shot through him like fire. The venom burned his skin, but he ignored it. Sweat ran into his eyes, making it hard to see. Finally, with one last swing of the knife, the final root snapped. The girl collapsed forward. Too weak to stand, Jack caught her before she hit the ground. She was light, too light. Her breathing was shallow, and her skin felt cold. He could see where the venom had touched her, dark marks spreading along her arms and legs. He looked around. The clearing was silent now, but the jungle never stayed quiet for long. If this plant was alive, it might have more of its kind nearby. Jack lifted her into his arms. She didn't resist. Just rested her head against his shoulder. Her golden eyes opened again. She looked at him as if trying to remember his face. "Why? Help," she whispered. Jack didn't answer. He didn't know why himself. Maybe it was the way she had looked at him. Maybe it was because she was so small and fragile in this deadly place. He stepped back into the shadows of the jungle. The vines closed behind him, hiding the clearing as if it had never existed somewhere in the distance. A low rumble echoed through the trees. It sounded like the jungle itself was waking up. Jack knew they had to move fast. The venom was already working through her body, and he had no idea how to stop it. But he had made one decision. He was not going to let her die here. Jack pushed forward through the thick jungle. His boots sank into the damp soil as he carried the tiny alien girl in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, each inhale weaker than the last. The glowing blue of her skin was fading fast, turning into a pale gray. The venom was winning. He had to move fast, but the jungle was like a living maze. Every step was blocked by hanging vines or massive roots. The air was hot and heavy. Sticking to his skin like a wet blanket, he could feel his own heart pounding. But he couldn't let panic slow him down. The girl stirred slightly, her golden eyes flickering open for a moment. "Don't. Stop," she whispered. Her voice was so faint he almost missed it. Jack nodded. "I won't," he said quietly. He tightened his grip around her. She weighed almost nothing, yet she felt like the heaviest thing he had ever carried, because her life depended on him. He broke through a wall of ferns and reached his small camp. A simple tent, a supply crate, and a dying fire were all he had. He laid her gently on a folded blanket. Her hands trembled, and sweat beaded on her forehead. Jack could see the dark veins spreading up her neck from the venom. Her lips moved, but her words were in a language he didn't understand. Still, her eyes told him enough. She was afraid. Jack grabbed his medkit, pulling out bandages, antiseptic, and a small syringe of anti-venom. But as soon as he saw the label, he cursed under his breath. It was for snake venom from Earth. This was something far worse, something alien. He knelt beside her. "What can I do?" he asked. She blinked slowly, then whispered a single word. "Hive." Her voice cracked. "They will come. The roots belong to them." Jack frowned. "The roots?" She gave a weak nod. "Living hunters. They don't let prey escape." A chill ran down his spine. The jungle outside seemed louder, now like hundreds of small things moving in the darkness. Jack glanced toward the tree line. The shadows shifted in ways they shouldn't. He realized they were not alone. He pulled his survival knife again. His hand was still burned where the venom had touched him. But the pain didn't matter. He couldn't fight an entire jungle. But maybe he could scare it off long enough to get her to safety. Suddenly, something long and black slid across the ground. It was a root, but it moved like a snake. It coiled toward the girl. Jack stepped forward and slashed it in two. Black venom sprayed into the dirt, sizzling as it burned a hole in the ground. The girl flinched and reached for him. Her hand gripped his wrist with surprising strength. "Don't let them take me," she whispered. Jack met her eyes. "I won't." Then he saw it glowing through the trees, dozens of faint green lights at first. He thought they were fireflies, but then they moved in perfect unison, circling the camp. The hive had arrived. More roots slithered from the shadows, weaving together into thick walls that began to close around them. Jack's pulse spiked. If they trapped him here, he and the girl were finished. He needed a plan, and fast. His eyes landed on his flare gun. He grabbed it, loaded a bright red flare, and fired straight into the canopy. The sudden explosion of light made the hive hesitate. The roots recoiled slightly. Twisting as if confused, the girl's weak voice broke through the noise. "Flower, Heart of the hive. Antidote. Jack looked at her sharply. A flower. You mean something in the hive can cure you? She nodded faintly. Glows. Gold. Guarded, her eyes fluttered shut again. Jack's mind raced. The only way to save her was to go toward the danger, not away from it. The hive was closing in. But if he moved fast, he could find this golden flower before they sealed the jungle. He quickly built a small barricade around her with his supply crate and spare tarp. It wouldn't stop the hive forever, but maybe it would hide her for a few minutes. He pressed the hilt of his knife into her hand. If they come for you, fight. He told her, her fingers curled around it weakly. Then Jack ran into the jungle. The ground trembled beneath him. Roots burst from the earth. Trying to grab his legs, he leaped over one, ducked under another, and kept going. The green lights ahead grew brighter. He was getting closer. The air smelled sweeter now, almost like honey. And then he saw it nestled in the center of a massive tangle of roots was a single glowing golden flower. Its petals shimmered like sunlight. But standing guard over it were two massive root beasts. Each one as tall as a man, their bodies were made entirely of twisted vines. Their heads crowned with thorn-like spikes. Jack crouched low. Every muscle in his body screamed to move. But he waited. Watching their patterns, he had one smoke grenade. Left in his belt, if he used it right, it might give him just enough time to grab the flower and escape. His fingers found the grenade. He pulled the pin and tossed it into the roots. A thick cloud of smoke erupted. The root beasts hissed and twisted in confusion. Jack sprinted forward, his boots slamming against the tangled ground. He reached the flower, tore it from the soil, and turned to run. The smoke was already clearing, and the beasts roared. Roots lashed out toward him. One wrapped around his ankle, dragging him to the ground. Jack slashed it with his knife and kept running. His lungs burned, his heart pounded. But he didn't stop. Somewhere behind him, the hive screamed a sound that was not quite plant and not quite animal. Jack burst back into his camp. The golden flower clutched in his hand. The girl was still there, her eyes half closed. He dropped to his knees beside her. "I've got it," he said. His voice was rough. She looked at the flower with a faint smile, but she was too weak to speak. Jack knew there was no time left. The next step could save her or kill them both. Jack's hands shook as he held the golden flower. The petals felt warm against his skin. Almost alive, the tiny alien girl lay before him, her breathing shallow, her skin now a pale, ghostly gray. The dark lines of venom spread up her neck like cracks in glass. He knew time was running out. He crushed the petals between his fingers. The flower released a thick golden liquid, sweet-smelling but sharp. Jack poured it into a metal cup and added water from his canteen. The mixture glowed faintly. The girl's golden eyes opened just a little now. "Or never," she whispered. Jack lifted her head and pressed the cup to her lips. At first, she didn't move. Then she took a small sip. Her throat moved slowly as she swallowed. For a moment, Jack dared to hope, but then her body jerked violently. She coughed, spilling some of the liquid. Her skin began to flicker between gray and blue, like a light struggling to stay on. Jack gritted his teeth. He held the cup to her. "Mouth again. Drink," he urged. This time, she drank more. Her trembling fingers reached up to steady the cup outside the camp. The jungle had gone silent. The green glow of the hive's eyes was still faint in the distance. Watching, Jack could feel if the hive wasn't gone. It was waiting. It wanted its prey back. Minutes passed. The girl's breathing eased slightly, but the dark marks on her skin didn't fade. Jack's hope dimmed. Maybe the flower wasn't enough, or maybe it was too late. He sat back, wiping sweat from his forehead. He had risked his life to get that flower, but now the girl's hand twitched. Her voice came out soft, but urgent. It's working, but slow. We need more. Jack looked at her sharply. More? Another flower? She shook her head weakly. The heart of the hive. The queen root. Only she can stop the venom. Jack stared at her. That meant going deeper into the hive's territory, where even the bravest hunters wouldn't go. But as he looked at her small, fragile, yet still fighting, he knew he couldn't stop now. Before he could answer, the ground beneath him shuddered. A low, deep sound echoed through the trees. The girl's eyes widened. They're coming, she whispered. Jack grabbed his knife and scanned the jungle. The green lights were closer now, moving like a tide through the trees. Roots broke through the soil at the edge of the camp, writhing and curling toward them. Jack slashed one in half. Black venom sprayed out. Hissing as it burned the dirt, the girl tried to stand but fell back with a cry. Her legs were too weak. Jack grabbed his pack and slung it over his shoulder. We're moving, he said. He lifted her into his arms again. Her weight felt even lighter now, as if she was fading away. She gripped his shirt tightly, her breathing quick and uneven. The jungle closed in around them. The hive's roots slithered across the ground, blocking the path. Jack's boots pounded against the earth. Every step was a fight. He hacked through vine after vine. But more kept coming. One root lashed around his wrist. The venom burned instantly. Jack grunted and sliced it away. His arm throbbed, the skin turning red and blistered. But he didn't stop. The girl's faint voice guided him. Left. Then down. Water they broke through into a narrow ravine where a small stream ran through glowing moss. Jack set her down beside the water for a moment. Her fingers dipped into it, and the moss lit up brighter. Her eyes closed, and she whispered in her language. The light spread from the moss into her skin, holding back the venom for a little longer. But Jack could see her strength was still fading. Where's the queen root? He asked. She pointed downstream under the oldest tree. Guarded by all of them. Jack swallowed hard. He could hear the hive behind them. The sound of roots tearing through the forest floor. He helped her drink from the stream, then lifted her again. The water's glow seemed to cling to her now, as if the jungle itself was trying to help her. They followed the stream until it opened into a massive clearing. In the center stood the largest tree Jack had ever seen. Its trunk was wide enough to hide a house. Its roots spread across the ground like the arms of a giant, and from its center, a huge knot of black and green vines pulsed like a beating heart. The queen root. The girl's breathing quickened. There, she whispered. But between them and the queen root stood dozens of root beasts. Their bodies twisted, their thorned heads turning toward the intruders. The green glow in their eyes brightened. Jack set the girl down gently. Stay hidden, he told her. She touched his arm. Don't die, she said simply. He managed a faint smile, not planning to. He stepped forward, gripping his knife in one hand and pulling his last flare with the other. The hive hissed. Roots surged forward. Jack fired the flare high into the branches above. The sudden burst of light made the beasts flinch. He charged, slashing at the vines blocking his path. Every step brought him closer to the queen root. The air grew hotter, the smell of venom thick. A root wrapped around his leg and pulled, but he hacked it apart. Another struck his shoulder. Slicing through his jacket, he ignored the pain. His eyes locked on the pulsing heart of the hive. Behind him, the girl's voice rang out not in fear, but in a strange melodic chant. The ground beneath the beasts began to glow. They hesitated, twisting toward her voice. Jack used the moment to leap forward and plunge his blade deep into the queen root. The hive screamed, a sound that shook the ground. The queen root's black liquid sprayed out, but Jack cut again and again, tearing it open, inside, wrapped in. Golden fibers was something glowing a core. He ripped it free and turned toward the girl. She reached for it with trembling hands. "Give it." "Now," she said. He placed it into her palms. The golden light spread instantly up her arms. The dark marks on her skin began to fade. But the hive was not done yet. The golden light from the core spread through the tiny alien girl's body. Her breathing became steady, and her skin returned to its soft, glowing blue. Jack felt a rush of relief, but it didn't last. The jungle trembled under his boots, and a deep, rumbling sound rolled through the air. The hive had arrived. From the shadows between the massive roots, shapes began to move. Dozens, no, hundreds of root beasts crawled forward. Their glowing green eyes burned like tiny lanterns in the dark. The ground split open as thick black vines erupted from the soil. Wrapping around trees and pulling them down, the entire clearing seemed to close in. The girl's golden eyes widened. "They know." "You hurt the queen," she whispered. Her voice was calm, but her fingers gripped the core tightly. Jack scanned the clearing, searching for a way out. The path they had taken was already blocked by a wall of twisting vines. One of the root beasts lunged. Jack swung his blade, slicing through its neck. The head fell to the ground, but black tendrils sprouted from it and slithered back toward the body. Jack's stomach tightened. These things didn't die easily. "Run," the girl said, standing shakily. Jack glanced at her. She could barely keep her balance, but her eyes were fierce. "I can't run without you," he replied. She shook her head. "I can slow them." "You find the way out." Jack hated the thought of leaving her even for a second. But she was right. If they didn't move now, they'd both be buried under the hive. He scanned the giant tree's roots. Looking for a gap, his eyes caught a narrow tunnel-like opening at the far side, partially hidden by thick moss. More beasts poured into the clearing, their movements faster now. Jack fired his last flare straight into the middle of the group. The blinding light made them recoil, but it would only by seconds. He grabbed the girl's hand. "With me," he said. They sprinted toward the tunnel. The roots beneath them shifted, trying to trip them. Jack leaped over one and pulled the girl along. A beast lunged from the side, but she raised her free hand. A flash of golden light burst from her palm, striking the creature. It screamed and fell back, smoking where the light had touched it. Jack's eyes widened. "You can fight." She gave a small, tired smile. "I'm a healer, but light burns darkness." They reached the tunnel. The opening was barely wide enough for Jack to crawl through. He shoved his pack in first, then helped the girl inside. The smell inside. The tunnel was damp and earthy. The sound of the hive above them grew louder, like a storm rolling closer. Jack crawled on his elbows. Pushing forward, the girl led the way, her faint glow lighting the path. The tunnel sloped downward, and cold air brushed against Jack's face. They were going deeper underground, away from the surface, but maybe away from the hive's main force too. After several minutes, the tunnel opened into a cavern. Massive glowing mushrooms covered the walls, casting a pale blue light. A small underground river flowed through the center. The girl knelt beside it and placed the golden core into the water. The light spread instantly, making the river shine. "This will hide us," she said softly. "The hive can't sense me while the core rests here." Jack raised an eyebrow. "And you?" She looked down. "The queen's venom will never touch me again. But they will still hunt you." Before Jack could answer, a low scraping sound echoed through the cavern. He spun around. His knife was ready. From the tunnel they had just crawled through, thin black roots began to slip inside, followed by the sound of beasts forcing their way in. "They found us," Jack muttered. He grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her toward the river. The water was shallow but fast. "We can follow it," he said. The girl hesitated. "It might take us anywhere." Jack glanced back at the roots closing in. "Anywhere is better than here." they waded into the river. The cold water rushed around their legs. The current was strong enough to help them move faster. Jack kept his eyes ahead, searching for light behind them. The hive's roots slithered into the water, but they seemed slower here, as if the glow weakened them. The cavern narrowed until they had to crouch. The roar of falling water echoed ahead. Jack's stomach sank waterfall. He turned to the girl. "Hold on to me." She wrapped her arms around his neck, and they stepped into the drop. The world spun as they fell into darkness. The water slammed into them, pulling them under. Jack fought to reach the surface. His head broke through, and he gasped for air. They were in another underground chamber, this one darker, but with a faint opening of daylight far above. He swam toward a rocky ledge and pulled the girl up beside him. They both sat for a moment, breathing hard. Somewhere above, the sound of the hive was faint, but Jack knew they weren't safe yet. The girl looked at him, her expression serious. "They will never stop. You hurt the queen. Now you're marked." Jack met her gaze. "Then we'll keep running." She shook her head. "Or we fight and end the hive for good." Jack looked up at the faint light above them. His hand tightened on his knife. He had come here just to explore, but now the fight was personal. Jack sat on the cold rock ledge, water dripping from his clothes. The faint light from above painted the cavern in silver. The tiny alien girl stood beside him, still holding the golden core close to her chest. Her glow was stronger now, but her eyes told a different story. She was tired, and she knew the fight wasn't over. The sound of the hive was distant, but it was there, a soft rumble beneath the earth. Like something massive shifting in the dark, Jack knew the hive was regrouping if they didn't act first. The hive would close every escape route and crush them alive. The girl turned to him. "You can still leave if you go now," she said quietly. Jack shook his head. "If I leave, they'll follow you." "And they'll follow me." She tilted her head slightly. "Then you've already chosen." Jack looked at her. "Chosen what?" She stepped closer to go into the heart of the hive and end it. Her voice was calm, but the weight of her words hung in the air. He thought about it for a moment. The hive had almost killed her. It had poisoned the jungle. And now it wanted him dead too. If he didn't stop it, more would die. He nodded. "All right. But we'll need a plan." The girl knelt by the golden river flowing through the cavern. She placed the core back into the water and began to whisper in her language. The glow spread farther, revealing more of the cave walls. Strange carvings appeared, shapes of plants, stars, and something that looked like a great battle. She pointed to one carving of a massive glowing tree, the first healer. She destroyed the hive once, but it grew back. To kill it, you must burn the heart. Jack frowned. Burn it? In a jungle this wet? She shook her head. Not with fire from wood. With fire from the sky. Jack realized what she meant. Plasma, he said. Thinking of the emergency beacon in his pack, if he could rig it to call the orbiting human scout ship, it could drop a plasma strike on the queen root, but that meant getting back inside the hive to place the beacon directly on its heart. He checked his pack. The beacon was still dry, wrapped in waterproof cloth. It wasn't meant for this. It was a distress signal, not a weapon, but if he set it right on the queen, the strike would burn everything. The girl watched him. If you fail, you won't come back. He smirked faintly. Guess we better not fail. They followed the underground river deeper into the earth. The current pulled them forward. The air grew warmer and thicker, with the smell of damp soil and venom. Jack's boots crunched over strange, bone-like roots buried in the ground. The girl walked close beside him, her glow lighting the way after what felt like hours. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber. The walls were alive roots, twisting slowly like the breathing of some giant beast. At the far end, the queen root pulsed, larger now than before. The black veins running through it glistened, and its glow was a deep, sickly green. Jack's hand went to his knife, but the girl touched his arm. "Wait. We must be silent," she whispered. They crept forward, staying low. Jack scanned for patrols. He could see root beasts moving along the walls, their glowing eyes sweeping the chamber like guards. They reached a cluster of rocks halfway to the... Queen Jack crouched and pulled out the beacon. He pressed a few buttons, setting it to call for an immediate orbital strike once activated. The red light blinked, slowly waiting, but before he could move, one of the root beasts froze. Its head turned toward them. The glow in its eyes brightened, and it let out a piercing hiss. The chamber exploded with movement. Dozens of beasts charged. "Go!" Jack shouted. He sprinted toward the queen root, weaving between the writhing vines. The girl ran behind him, her hands glowing brighter. She threw bursts of golden light at the beasts, slowing some, burning others. A massive vine lashed out and struck Jack's shoulder, spinning him to the ground. Pain shot through him, but he rolled and got back up. The queen root loomed ahead. The air around it felt heavy, almost crushing. Another beast lunged. Jack plunged his knife into its chest and ripped it free. The creature fell back, but two more took its place. The girl's light flashed again, blinding them for a moment. "Now!" she yelled. Jack leaped forward and slammed the beacon into the queen root's pulsing surface. The roots recoiled, hissing. A loud hum filled the air. The beacon was active. The red light flashed faster and faster. But the queen root reacted violently. Massive vines shot out, wrapping around Jack's legs and waist, lifting him off the ground. The pressure crushed the air from his lungs. The girl screamed his name. She ran forward, her entire body glowing like a small sun. The light from her hands burned through the vines, freeing Jack. He hit the ground hard but scrambled back to his feet. The beacon was still in place. The red light turned solid signal sent. Jack grabbed the girl's arm. "We have to run now." They sprinted back toward the tunnel. The roar of the hive shook the chamber. The walls split as roots thrashed wildly. Beasts poured in from every side, but the girl's golden light carved a path through them. Behind them, the sickly green glow of the queen root began to flicker. Above, the ceiling trembled. Dust and bits of root rained down. The air grew hot. They dove into the tunnel just as a blinding flash filled the chamber. A deep, roaring sound followed plasma fire from the sky, tearing into the heart of the hive. The heat chased them, the ground shaking as if the jungle itself was screaming. Jack didn't look back. He kept running, dragging the girl with him. The tunnel twisted and turned until finally a rush of fresh air hit them. They burst out into the night jungle, collapsing to the ground behind them. The sky glowed orange where the blast had burned through the earth. The hive's green light was gone, replaced by smoke and silence. Jack lay on his back. Gasping for breath, the girl knelt beside him, her golden eyes reflecting the firelight. "It's over," she whispered. Jack gave a tired smile. "For now." The jungle was silent for the first time since Jack had landed on the planet. The usual hum of insects, the cries of strange birds, and the rustle of unseen creatures were gone. Only the distant crackle of burning roots broke the stillness. Jack lay on his back, his chest rising and falling as he caught his breath. The fight had taken everything out of him. His arms were covered in cuts. His clothes were torn, and his shoulder ached where the vine had struck him. Beside him, the tiny alien girl knelt, her silver hair glowing faintly under the starlight. She was watching him closely, her golden eyes soft but focused. "You're hurt," she said in a low voice. Jack let out a weak laugh. "You should see the other guy." She tilted her head, not fully understanding his human joke, but her lips curved into the faintest smile. Her hands moved toward him, glowing softly. Jack raised an eyebrow. "You're going to heal me?" She nodded. "It's my gift. And my promise." She placed her small hands on his injured shoulder. Warmth spread instantly through him. Not like heat from a fire, but like sunlight breaking through clouds. The pain melted away. His breathing eased, and the exhaustion that weighed on him began to fade. Jack stared at her. "That's credible." She lowered her hands, but the glow stayed in her skin. "It's not just healing," she said softly. "It's a bond. Once I heal someone fully, I'm tied to them. For life." Jack sat up slowly, looking at her, tied. "Like a debt." She shook her head. "Not a debt, a choice. Your pain becomes mine. Your life becomes my life." He didn't know what to say. He had come here to map the jungle, nothing more. Now he had fought a living hive, saved a stranger, and apparently earned a bond he didn't fully understand, but the sincerity in her eyes told him she meant every word. "Why me?" he asked quietly. She looked down, her fingers tracing the golden core still resting in her lap. "Because you didn't have to help me, but you did, even when it hurt you, even when it could have killed you." Jack opened his mouth to reply, but a soft breeze rustled the leaves overhead. It carried a faint, sweet scent, flowers blooming somewhere in the distance. The air felt lighter now, as if the jungle itself had taken a deep breath after years of holding it. The girl stood and looked around. The hive's shadow is gone. The plants will grow freely again. Jack rose to his feet. "And you? What will you do now?" She turned to face him. "Stay with you until my bond is fulfilled." Jack chuckled softly. "Guess I've got a travel partner now." She tilted her head again. "Travel partner." He grinned. "It means we go together, no matter what." Her golden eyes brightened at his words. She stepped closer, her glow casting a warm light across his face. "Then we go together," she said firmly. They began walking through the jungle. The path was easier now, without roots trying to trap them. Strange animals peeked from the shadows, but didn't come closer. It was as if the entire forest recognized her presence. After some time, they reached the edge of the jungle where Jack's small landing craft waited. The hull was scratched, and the dust of the planet clung to its sides. Jack opened the ramp and gestured for her to go inside. She hesitated, looking back at the forest. "This is my home," she said softly. "I may never see it again." Jack stepped beside her. "Then let's make sure you have a new one inside the craft." Jack powered up the engines. The hum filled the small cabin, and the lights flickered to life. The girl sat in the seat beside him, her hands resting on the golden core in her lap. As they lifted off, the jungle spread out beneath them. The burned heart of the hive was a dark scar in the center, but already green shoots were beginning to push through the ash. Jack watched it grow smaller through the window. Knowing the fight there was over, at least for now, the girl broke the silence. "What is your world like?" Jack thought for a moment. "Different, but I think you'd like it." She smiled faintly. "Then one day, you will take me there." Jack nodded. One day, the hum of the engines filled the cabin as the craft climbed higher. The stars opened up above them, endless and bright. For the first time since he had arrived on the planet, Jack felt a strange sense of peace. He didn't know where they were going next, or what dangers they would face, but he knew one thing: he wasn't alone anymore. The tiny alien healer sat beside him, bound to him by choice. Her light steady in the darkness, and somewhere deep inside, Jack felt a new kind of strength. Not just from her healing, but from knowing she would stand beside him, no matter what came next. The stars shone bright above as Jack's small landing craft cut through the night sky. Below, the alien jungle was nothing but a sea of dark green, broken only by the faint orange glow where the hive had burned. The hum of the engines was steady, almost calming, The tiny alien healer sat in the co-pilot seat, her silver hair falling over her shoulders. The golden core rested in her lap, still glowing faintly. She had not let go of it since the moment they escaped. Her golden eyes watched the horizon, but Jack could see her thoughts were far away. "You're quiet," Jack said, glancing at her. She looked at him and gave a small smile. "I'm thinking," Jack raised an eyebrow. "About what?" She hesitated, then spoke softly, "About what comes next." "And about the promise." Jack leaned back in his seat. "The bond you told me about?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. I promised my life to you. To heal your wounds, to share your pain, to stand beside you." She looked down at the core in her hands. "In my culture, a bond like this is never broken." Jack's expression softened. "Sounds like a lot to carry." She met his eyes, not for the right person. Her words lingered between them, quiet but strong. The craft began to descend toward the outer ridge of the jungle, where Jack's base camp was still set up. So landing skids touched the ground, the engines powered down, and the sudden silence made the night seem deeper. The forest here was peaceful, free from the shadow of the hive. They stepped out into the cool air. The moonlight spilled across the clearing, lighting the path back to camp. The girl walked beside Jack, her bare feet silent on the soft earth. Every now and then she would glance at him, as if making sure he was still there. At the edge of the camp, Jack stopped. "You could stay here," he said. "It's safe now. The hive's gone. You'd be home." She looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. "My home is not a place. It's the one I am bound to." Jack smiled faintly. "Guess that means I'm stuck with you." She tilted her head, her lips curling into a rare smile. "No, I'm stuck with you." They sat by the fire pit, its faint embers still glowing from before they left. Jack added a few dry sticks, and the flames came back to life. The warm light danced across their faces. The girl placed the golden core beside the fire, and it glowed even brighter. "This," she said, pointing to it, "is part of the Queen's heart. Without it, the hive cannot return. But if it ever falls into the wrong hands, it could be used to grow another hive." Jack frowned. "So we guard it." She nodded. Together. For a while, they sat in comfortable silence. The crackle of the fire mixed with the distant sounds of the jungle sounds that now felt like life instead of danger. The girl pulled her knees to her chest. "Watching the flames, Jack," she said suddenly, "on your world, do people trust easily?" He thought about it. "Some do. Most don't. Trust is earned." She nodded slowly. "Then, I hope I've earned yours." Jack looked at her. "You risked your life for me. I think that's more than enough." Her eyes softened, and she looked back at the fire. "In my language," she said quietly, "there is a word for a bond like ours. It means one life shared between two hearts." Jack didn't answer right away, but something about those words stayed with him. The fire burned low, casting long shadows around them. The jungle seemed to lean closer, as if listening. Jack stood and offered his hand. "Come on. If we're going to travel together, we should rest while we can." She took his hand without hesitation. They walked toward the small shelter Jack had built days ago. The night air was cool, and the stars overhead felt almost close enough to touch. As they reached the shelter, the girl stopped and looked back at the jungle. "I will remember this place," she said, "not for the danger, but for the promise made here." Jack tilted his head. "And what promise is that?" She looked at him, her golden eyes steady. "That I will never let you face the dark alone." Jack felt something in his chest, tighten, not fear, but the rare warmth of knowing he could believe her. He gave a small nod. "Then I promise the same." They stepped inside the shelter, the quiet night wrapping around them. Outside, the jungle healed from the scars of the hive. New life was already pushing through the ash, and the air was full of the scent of growing things somewhere deep in the forest. A flower bloomed under the moonlight, glowing faintly in the dark. It was a sign that the jungle's balance had returned. But in the small shelter on the ridge, another kind of balance had been found, a bond between a human and a healer, forged in danger and sealed with trust. And though neither of them knew where the path ahead would lead, they knew they would walk it together, side by side.